Hey guys, and welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you are a regular subscriber. So as you guys can see by the title of this video, this is going to be the end of year book tag. So this tag was originally started by Destiny Sidwell. If you don't watch her videos on YouTube, I will link her video where she did this down below. And she basically just asked her subscribers to send in book related questions that were kind of like wrap up questions, and she picked a whole bunch of them and then has made this into a tag. So I wanted to jump on and do this tag. Obviously this will be going up in the new year, but I just thought it would be a nice little wrap up of 2023 and the books that I read, and then I will also do like a more in-depth like all the books that I read in 2023 and my thoughts video as well. So I've written all the questions down here. Some of these books I have and some of them I don't, depending on the questions. Let's jump straight into this video. So the first question that we've got is the most disappointing book of 2023. So that for me was Glow by Amy Kathleen Ryan. I don't have the copy anymore of this book because I was disappointed in it so much that I didn't keep it. I almost DNF'd it, but it was on my 23 books to read in 2023, so I really just wanted to get through it, but it was a struggle. It seemed like it was teen fiction, but it was classified as YA, but it felt like a book for like 12 and 13-year-olds. The concept just was not great. Basically, there was a ship that was traveling to Middle Earth where you were following Kieran and Waverly, I think was her name, and they like claim to be in love, and they are like the first generation of children that have been born in space, and then all of a sudden like they're ripped apart, and it's kind of like the story of them coming back together. It is the first book in a series called the Sky Chasers series. I don't know, there was just a lot of like culty aspects of like when they got ripped apart with like things that were happening, a lot of like religious things that I would not actually say are religious practices and are more like culty practices, and that really annoyed me being Christian. And also just the fact that like they claimed to be in love and they were like, when they were apart they were like, oh, I just want to be with him, blah, blah, blah. But then at the end of the book, when they're actually reunited, they just start getting annoyed at each other. Then like there's another guy that gets thrown in that I think the author was trying to do a love triangle with, and it just didn't work, and it was just a terrible book, so I'm not continuing the series. The next question is your underdog book of 2023, and that has to go to The Loop by Ben Oliver. If you guys have been on my channel for a while, you've probably heard me talk about this till the cows come home. I love this book here. This is a YA dystopian series. It is a trilogy, so it's called the Loop trilogy. This book is The Loop, the second book is The Block, and the third book is called The Ark. So far I have only just read the first book, but I do want to continue the series in 2024. It is described as a cross between The Maze Runner and The Matrix. Basically in this book you are following Luca, and he is a prisoner on death row in a prison called The Loop. Now in this prison it's like a society where like you have routine every single day, so the exact same thing. You have like a little patch of grass that you go on like an hour a day, and it has all these massive like concrete walls between all of the cells, so you can hear other inmates but you can't actually see them. It's the same routine every day, and they can do, can't remember what they're called in the book, I'm blanking on the name. The people who are like running the prison are basically testing new technology on these prisoners to try and enhance life in the outside world, outside of the prisoners, and if they decide to go through with these tests, then their death date gets pushed back. Then one day the system glitches, and then it's just like a big thing to try and escape. And it was really fast paced, really short chapters. I didn't expect to love it as much as I did, and so that's why I've put it as my underdog book. Really easy to read, honestly. If you loved The Maze Runner, you will love this trilogy. I recommended this to my sister. My sister read the first book and then binged the rest of the trilogy because she loved it so much. Really short as well. It was really easy for me to visualize as well, which I feel like is always a sign of a successful book. Question 3 is a book that was overhyped. So for this one here, I have given The People We Keep by, I think it's Alison Larkin. This one was a book that got really popular on BookTok, so I really wanted to give it a go. I borrowed this from my local library, and I loved the first half of the book. I can't remember the main girl's name, but she grew up in like a caravan park, and she was kind of like struggling for money. Her family was quite poor. She was living with her dad, who I'm pretty sure was like either a drug addict or an alcoholic, so it does have like some trigger warnings, so definitely check them. And she basically wanted to grow up and be a singer, so she was like trying to do everything that she could to be a singer. Halfway through the book it had a weird time jump, and I was like really invested in like the first half of the story, and I really loved the direction that it was going, and the time jump just completely threw me, and I didn't like the guy that she ended up with. I thought he was a bit of a waste of space. He was really lazy, he didn't have a job, he kind of just expected her to like go out and provide for both of them, which really frustrated me. I don't know, just towards the end I just didn't like the character. There's also a trait in this which I don't know if I liked very much. Question 4 is your favorite book couple. Now I have a couple for this because I couldn't pick between the two, so I had to choose Lily and Atlas from It Ends With Us, and then Nate and Stacy from Icebreaker. I loved both of these. I feel like Lily had a lot of like personal growth, which I thought was done really well, and Atlas, I just think he is the most sweetest human being you will ever meet, so I love Atlas. And then Nate and Stacy, so with Icebreaker it is a reverse Grumpy Sunshine, so Stacy is the Grumpy Sunshine and Nate is the like the golden retriever boy, which I loved. Basically, if you've not heard of either of these books, I feel like you have, but It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover is a romance book. It deals with a lot of really intense topics, and just follows Lily, who she kind of grew up in a household that was really tough, and it's kind of just like her story trying to like, I guess, grow up and navigate life a little bit. It definitely speaks a lot on some serious topics, but I flew through this. I loved this. I thought Lily was a very relatable character. And then Icebreaker, you have Stacy, who is a figure skater, and Nate, who is a hockey player, like an ice hockey player. It's like a sports romance book, which I didn't think I would like, because I'm not a sports girly at all. I played netball in high school and that was about it. I actually really enjoyed this. And basically something happens to the figure skaters ice rink. They have to share an ice rink with the ice hockey players, and both of them are like getting ready to like compete in competitions, and they are in college, so it's just a classic romance book. It's quite a longer book. It is spicy, this one, so definitely keep that in mind. It's a bit more spicy than what I was used to, but I did like the fact that there was actually a plot alongside the romance, and so that's why I loved it so much. This one is written by Hannah Grace, and it is the first book in the Maple Hills series, but I just thought Nate and Stacy was so cute together, and especially like their character growth and character development, I just thought was done really well. So they are my 2 picks for that question. Question 5 is your favorite main character. So I struggled a little bit with this one to try and answer this question. I think at the end of the day I have to say Avery from the Inheritance games. I just thought she was very relatable in the way that she grew up. I loved how she just carried herself. I loved that she was very humble. She remembered where she came from. I also feel like she doesn't mess around. If you've not heard of the Inheritance games, it is a trilogy written by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. Basically, Avery one day inherits billions of dollars from this old rich guy that she's never met, and in order to receive this inheritance she has to live in this guy's massive mansion, which is called Hawthorne House, with all 4 of the Hawthorne brothers, so that's like the grandsons of this guy that has died, and all of their family for an entire year. And the house is very like Nancy Drew, like a lot of like secret passageways and things hidden in the walls, and there's a lot of like riddles that she is trying to figure out as to why she's inherited all this money. Again, these books very bingeable, super quick and easy to read, short chapters, very addictive. You do not want to put it down. I apologize if I'm in a slightly different position. My battery just died, so I've just changed it over to my other one. And I also apologize if you can still hear the noise in the background. The guy who owns the house is doing some gardening outside. Question 6 is a book that surprised you. So I have 2 for this one. The first book that I want to talk about is Hunted by, I think it was Megan Spooner. But this one is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. It gave me very similar vibes to ACOTAR, so if you've not read Hunted and you loved ACOTAR, I would highly suggest you read it. But it's like ACOTAR without the spice. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. You did also get perspectives from the Beast as well, like a few pages, which I thought was very helpful as well. And I just thought it was written very well, very descriptive. It was a fantasy standalone as well, so really easy to read. It was YA, and I kind of just picked it up and didn't really know what to think of it, to be honest, when I looked at the cover. But then I read it and I fell in love with it, and I do really want to get a physical copy of this book to have on my bookshelf as well, so that I can reread it and so that I can also lend it out to people. It's a really easy fantasy book to get into if you're like new to fantasy. And then the second book that I wanted to talk about is this one here. So this one is The Yearbook Committee by Sarah Ayoub. This one I didn't expect to like as much as I did. So this one is a YA, it's just like a general fiction book, and you get 5 different perspectives in this book. So you have Ryan, who is the school captain, Charlie, who is the newcomer, Gillian, who is the MP's daughter, Tammy, who is the popular girl's best friend, and Maddie, who is the loner. They all come from like different backgrounds, different households, different upbringings, and they are all put together to write the school's yearbook for like their senior year in school. And there's just so much more that goes on underneath, and there's a lot of like other little plots and things that are kind of going along. Charlie was one of my favorite characters because she had some great one-liners. She's very witty. The banter in this book was really good. Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this book. I read it really quickly as well, and it just surprised me a lot. And the ending kind of felt like it came out of nowhere, but in like the best way possible. Like, I just didn't expect that from this book. Question 7 is your new favorite author that you discovered in 2023, and that has to go to Sarah J Maas. So I have read a few books by her. I've read Akatar, Akamath, and I'm currently still reading Akawar, but I started it in 2023. And I just love the way that she writes. I think her brain is very creative. I like that her fantasy series are really easy to pick up as someone like myself who doesn't normally read a lot of fantasy. But I just love the way that she describes things. Her writing just feels so magical, and I can't wait to read more from her in 2024. Question 8 is the happiest read of 2023, and that has to go to The Flatshare by Beth O'Leary. This book had me laughing, had me giggling, had me kicking my feet. I read it really quick, and basically this follows Tiffy and Leon. So Tiffy works during the day and Leon works during the night, and they share this 1-bedroom flat and they've never met. And then they start like leaving little like post-it notes around for each other, and things kind of just go from there. This is a romance book. I don't know if it's a YA or an adult. Thoroughly enjoyed this. It was just very witty. I feel like I see a lot of myself in Tiffy, and I just loved that. I thought she was a great main character, really funny, the type of person that I would want to be friends with, and I just think Beth O'Leary did a great job with this book. 9 is the most frustrating book of the year. Now that has to go to Bad Girl Reputation by Elle Kennedy. So I borrowed this from the library, and I purely wanted to read it because it had a lot of hype on Book Talk, and I was just really disappointed by it. Like, it felt very like lusty, like the chemistry I didn't fully believe in. The guy would only ever talk about how much he cared about the girl when he was like, oh, I really like this part of her body, or I like this part of her body, and it was never like her smile or her personality. Like, the girl was kind of awful. She wasn't a great friend. She would talk about people behind their back. She just was not nice, and I just didn't like either of them. I didn't really feel like there was much of a plot. Question 10 is the best adaptation from book to film, and I have to say The Summer I Turned Pretty by Jenny Han. So this is a YA romance trilogy. So I actually read this trilogy back in high school for the first time, and I loved it, and then I like that it's got more hype because now it's easier to find. I reread it again at the start of January, so in summer last year. So literally this time last year I was binging this trilogy again. I haven't watched a lot of the adaptations this year because I haven't like read the book, so this is kind of like the only one that I've watched. I did think it was done really well. I feel like the casting was good as well, the acting was good, the plot was good, and I feel like even the little bits they added into the TV show to make it have a little bit more depth, I feel like it worked, and I wasn't mad that they'd done it. I feel like the way that it was visualized was exactly how I visualized it in the book, so I'm really thankful for that. Question 11 is the longest book that you've read in 2023. That has to go to Akamath, so A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J Maas. This is the second book in the ACOTAR series. I do have to say this one is my favorite so far from what I've read, and I completely understand why it has the hype that it does, like especially in the second book, and why people love it so much. You just get some really beautiful settings. You get more of our male main character as well in this book, and more of the romance, which I really loved. This book here is 624 pages, so it is a chunky book. I think this took me like a week and a half to read. Question 12 is the shortest book that you read, and that is the One Hawthorn Night short story that is in the back of this book here, and it's like an exclusive to this edition, so it's literally only like 14 pages long, but it's just like a little extra short story which relates to the Final Gambit book here. So that was a super quick and easy read. I did read that in a reading vlog that I did last year as well, if you want to get a bit more of my thoughts. Question 13 are your favorite book covers from 2023. So the first one that I really love is No Funny Business by Amanda Eskel. I really like the little like cartoon cover. I think it's really cute. I love that the backdrop is pink because it's my favorite color, and that's actually what had drew me to the book in the first place, was the cover. I also had to mention The Loop by Ben Oliver, because if you look at it up close, like this is what I imagine like the Loop prison looks like. And I also like that it's like a matte finish on the book. And then the last books that I had to mention, of course, is the Inheritance Games trilogy. I honestly love these covers, like these new covers. They are just so cool. Question 15 is the cringiest book that you've read this year. I have two for this one. The first one is Forever by Judy Blume. This one, it just kind of annoyed me, to be honest. I think it's teen fiction. I think it was just too young for me, but it was just basically like this couple like wanting to get together and saying that they really like each other, but it was mainly just them like wanting to like sleep with each other. The guy was a bit of a dickhead as well, like I really didn't like him. And then the other book that I read that was just really cringy is Postgrad by Emily Cassell. So this one is adapted from the screenplay of the movie of Postgrad. I'm pretty sure this is teen fiction as well, or YA. It felt very teen fiction. I think that's why it was probably like quite cringy. Just some of the things that like the dad was doing, and like that the main girl would say. This main girl has these aspirations after college because she's like just finished getting her degree to get like the best job and like the best apartment and just like have the most gorgeous like relationship and things like that. And it just felt like she should have known better if she was finishing college. Like she was going into a full-time job with her degree, and she was just very like away with the fairies and very naive, and I just felt like you wouldn't actually be like that if you were at the age that she was at. So question 16 is an unpopular book that you loved. So for this one, again, I wanted to use Hunted by Megan Spooner, just because nobody talks about it and I think it needs more hype than what it's got. So question 17 was a question about Goodreads and like your Goodreads highest and lowest rated book, and if you felt like you agreed with it. But I don't actually use Goodreads, so I'm skipping that question. Question 18 was like your favorite quotes, and again I am skipping that question just because I don't annotate my books. Question 19 is a book with the most unique concept. So I have a fiction book and a non-fiction book for this one. So I'm going to talk about my non-fiction book first. This one is Love Stories by Trent Dalton. So this one is basically Trent going onto a busy street in Australia, in Brisbane, sitting down with his typewriter and just asking people for their love stories. And there was a mixture of different love stories. Some of them were like romance, some of them were like friendship, some of them were like family members and things like that. And there was a lot in this book, and I just thought it was such a unique concept that I haven't seen anyone else do, and I really enjoyed this. I was reading like a couple of them like before bed every night, and it was just so wholesome and put me in like the best mood. The fiction book that I wanted to talk about is The Lovely Bones by Alice Sebold. I decided not to keep this book. I enjoyed it, but I also don't think that like it's a thriller that I would recommend necessarily for people to read, just because like there wasn't anything like crazy about it. It was more to do with like her grief of realizing what she had missed out on and being okay with accepting that. You are following Susie. Susie is the main girl's name. She has died at like the age of 14 or 15, and it's basically her watching down on Earth and watching her family as they try and kind of look for her killer, but also it's kind of like watching her family try and move on and do life without her, and then it's also her accepting the fact that she's died and knowing that that was her life. Like she can't have any more time than what she got. So I think it's got some good messages in it, but it's definitely quite heavy on the grief. Again, I just thought it was an interesting concept because you're almost getting that point of view of like an angel almost. I say that very loosely, but that's kind of how she's like perceived in the book, as like almost like a guardian angel type thing. Question 20 is a book that you would reread. So I've got two for these ones here. So I've got ACOTAR, which I'm gonna include this as the entire series. I would reread the entire ACOTAR series, and Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. Again, this is the first book in the Maple Hills series. Second book is out. I have it, but I haven't read it yet, and the third book comes out in June of this year, which I am really excited to get my hands on. Question 21, your reading goal reflection from 2023 and then your reading goals for 2024. So I only had one reading goal for 2023, and that was to read 50 books, and I did achieve that. I actually read 55, and I will do a video where I talk a little bit more in depth about all of the books that I read in 2023 and my thoughts. And then my goals for 2024, I have a few. The first one is that I want to read 55 books. So obviously I read 55 in 2023. I want to read 55 in 2024. I've kept it at that because I am also going to uni this year, so I feel like it is a easier number for me to feel like I can hit. The second goal that I have is that I want to read 5 classics this year. I'm not a big classics girly normally. I haven't really read many. I think I've only ever read Animal Farm by George Orwell, and that was for school. Yeah, I don't have a set 5, but I have a shelf up here in my spare room which has all classics on it, so I'm just gonna pick 5 off of that. My next goal is that I want to read 5 Christian non-fiction books. The next goal that I have is that I want to cut down my thriller genre by half. I just have a lot of thriller books on my shelf, and I don't tend to read thriller a whole heap. It's definitely something I want to work on cutting down this year. I think especially in like the autumn winter time, I want to try and get through as many thrillers as I can. And then my last goal that I have for 2024 for reading is that I want to continue to read one book that I have purchased recently, so within the last 2 years, and then one older book that I have owned on my shelf for more than 2 years. Just because I really want to try and cut down my physical TBR as much as possible. So there we go, guys. That is the end of year book tag. I really hope you guys enjoyed hearing this and maybe got some new recommendations from it. If you guys want to watch any more reading related or book related videos on my channel, I have a whole playlist which I will leave down below for you guys. And if you guys enjoyed this video, please make sure to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you have not already. Please make sure to turn on the notifications and check out my social media. It's always linked down below in the description box. I wish you all the best for all of your reading goals and things that you have for this year. Let me know down below what your reading goals are if you have any, or if you just want to get into reading this year, then let me know as well. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.